During the Cold War, the superpowers busily created enough weapons to destroy all life on Earth as many times over as possible. Later, they largely lost interest in destroying all life on Earth as many times over as possible, and instead dumped these weapons in vaults and largely forgot about them. But not everyone forgot. This raises an interesting question, one that's occurred to all of us at one time or another. How hard is it to steal an atom bomb? 1982 was not a good year for the Cold War. Tensions were running at some of their all-time highest levels, and America's nuclear arsenal included well over 20,000 warheads. John Dingell, chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, began a security review of the Department of Energy's various nuclear storage and assembly facilities. His official conclusion was that their security wouldn't stop a group of Girl Scouts. They found that many of the security alarms didn't work or were fake. That many of the guards didn't know how to shoot. And that a technician with a top clearance to work with nuclear materials had a police record as a professional burglar. At one facility, weapons-grade plutonium was discovered being stored in old tomato juice cans next to a publicly accessible fence with a broken alarm system. In a security test, agents were able to enter, take several bombs worth of plutonium, and leave 16 minutes before the guards noticed that they'd been there. At another location, management assured the investigators that all bombs and nuclear materials were stored in a vault behind massive doors costing hundreds of thousands of dollars that had been designed to withstand explosives, acid, lasers, and diamond-tipped drills. The investigators agreed, but then pointed out that the vault also had an unlocked back door next to a public road. At another location still, bombs created for nuclear testing, which aren't fitted with fail-safes and can be detonated by pressing a button, were stored in a small structure on the base's outskirts that was determined in a 1980 security assessment to be completely unsafe. Nothing was done. The 1982 review agreed. Nothing was done. In 1984, an inspection team was able to enter the site and make off with an atom bomb without anyone noticing. After that, they decided to close it down. All in all, not a single facility was judged to be capable of withstanding a raid by terrorists. Many people found these results to be disturbing, so in the years between 1980 and 1984, security funding at these sites was increased from $150 million a year to $600 million a year. Subsequent studies found no improvement. And so between 1984 and 1990, it was increased again to almost $1 billion a year. Afterwards, a 1991 study found that things had improved this time, but still identified more than 2,000 security flaws. Since then, the government has been more tight-lipped. One thing we do still know are the results of the force-on-force security tests. In these, a group of ex-Marines, standing in for terrorists, will try to break into a base and make off with an atom bomb. From the beginning to the present day, the results of these tests has been very consistent. They found that if a base is attacked by only a small group of terrorists, who use only small, ineffective weapons, and who don't use body armor or bulletproof vests, and if the day before they attack they ring up the base and tell them that they're coming, and if they then give them plans of everything they're going to do next, the security forces can stop them from making off with a bomb exactly 50% of the time. Some people have found this statistic disturbing, but the government has made it clear that they regard this as sufficient. A possible sign that it isn't comes from a Christian pacifist protest group called the Plowshares Movement. This group protests against nuclear weapons by demonstrating just how easy it is to break into the places where they're made and stored. Plowshares has staged about 100 protests since their conception. One of the most recent and dramatic of these was in 2012, when 3 protesters, led by Sister Megan Rice, an 82-year-old nun, cut through a fence and walked into the section of the Y-12 National Security Complex where more than 100 tons of weapons-grade uranium is stored. Once in, they wandered around for hours before finally being spotted by a lone guard. Just before this incident, Y-12 had been rated by inspections and force-on-force tests as one of the most secure nuclear sites in the US. In the last few years, there have been a number of other high-profile scandals involving nuclear security lapses, including the doors being left open in a nuclear missile silo while the personnel were asleep, the potential compromise of launch codes by an Air Force officer, and 6 nuclear bombs being unaccounted for 3 days after accidentally being loaded into a bomber. Though, if it sometimes seems like the military aren't trying as hard as they should to protect their bombs, it might be because the bombs can help protect themselves. In 1962, John F. Kennedy signed a memorandum declaring that all American bombs should be protected by mechanisms called PALs, or Permissive Action Links. And while it took until 1987 and the dying days of the Cold War for this to become a reality, all, or almost all, US bombs are now equipped with PALs. A PAL makes it impossible for a bomb to be used unless it has been activated with a launch code. If the wrong code is entered repeatedly or internal sensors detect something odd happening, the PAL will destroy vital components and permanently incapacitate the bomb. The PAL includes a sensor membrane that covers the entire internal mechanism of both the bomb and the PAL itself. If it detects someone trying to cut through the membrane to bypass the security system, modify the bomb, or extract the nuclear core, it automatically activates a self-destruct charge that destroys the bomb and everyone nearby. Despite multiple attempts by experts, no one has ever successfully bypassed a PAL. One of their designers describes doing so as being as difficult as performing a tonsillectomy on a patient from the wrong end. Due to these devices, it is very possible that terrorists already have bombs but are unable to use them. Unless, of course, they can find out the launch code. Until 1977, the launch code for all missiles in silos in the US was this. Presumably in the hope that anyone who stole one would start guessing at 9999999 and work their way down. The Pentagon has assured people that the current code is harder to guess. Obviously, a terrorist's ideal target would be a bomb with the PAL disabled. The US nuclear stockpile currently includes 2,700 obsolete nuclear bombs awaiting dismantling. Since the early 90s, the US has dismantled more than 10,000 bombs. The natural first step of taking apart a bomb involves deactivating the PAL. They are then broken down into several easily reassembled pieces and stored in highly secure locations that no one could ever break into. such as Y-12, which now stores thousands. If American nuclear security sounds depressing, and it does, at least something is known about it. The other country with a large nuclear stockpile is much more secretive about these things, though indications are that the situation is much, much worse. A rare comment on Russia's nuclear security was made by General Alexander Lebed in 1997. He stated that, while working for the Russian Security Council, he discovered that at least 86 very small nuclear bombs couldn't be accounted for. These bombs are called suitcase nukes, and were designed to be carried to a target by a saboteur. The Russian government immediately denied this story, and several scientists questioned its likelihood, but two very high-level Russian defectors immediately confirmed these bombs' existence. One of these, Stanislav Lunev, the highest ever ranking defector from the top-secret military intelligence organization known as the GRU, went even further. Lunev had been part of a secret program to conceal weapons caches in enemy countries for use by Soviet agents in the event of a war. Several of these buried caches have since been found in European countries after their locations were discovered in leaked Russian documents. All were booby-trapped with explosives, with one in Switzerland exploding as the authorities tried to remove it. Lunev commented that the reported number of missing devices exactly matched the planned number of US weapons caches, further noting that their tests had found that it was surprisingly easy to smuggle nuclear bombs into America. But, despite searches, no Russian weapons caches have yet been found in the United States, despite apparently being the main target of the cache program. So, when you're out and about, keep an eye open. An easily obtainable atom bomb might be closer than you think.